Thanks for joining us. I'm actually really excited to have this conversation with the entire industry, mainly because it's impossible to ever get you on a stage. He's so busy. Today I have a couple of guests, Dane Brehm of Cintegral, correct? And Bradley Greenberg, who was going to join us live, but unfortunately he came down with COVID, so he's joining us virtually today. He's from Coresite. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of who Coresite is. Coresite, what they're known for mainly is the One Wilshire, which many of you probably do quite a bit of business with Coresite. Today, I want to talk, and I brought a couple of people together. One, I want to talk about some of the services that they offer, but I want to talk about data gravity and the difficulties that we're having with data infrastructure and the amount of data that we are acquiring, and how to move that data and the tremendous amounts of infrastructure that it's going to take in the future to support that type of data. It is exponentially growing. And one of my guests, Dane, has a lot of experience in this and is constantly battling with the amount of data, and which goes with infrastructure at the same time. And there are other services like Coresite which can help as well. So I do want to hand it over to Dane to kind of give a little bit of background on his services and some of his experiences with big data and its growing.
Thanks, Sean. Good to see all of you today. Thanks for coming out and listening to the symposium. So my name's Dane Brehm. I'm with Cintegral. Cintegral is a very young company. We're probably about 6 years old or so, and we're in some ways you could call it data transfer as a service, storage as a service, hardware as a service. Our main business is providing storage, high performance enterprise storage for production, post-production for the most part, but our specialty has been more so in field deployable systems, right? These are systems that are going to Jamaica, they're going to UK, New York, the incentive states, if you guys are familiar with some of those. It's data that has to be transferred around, but most of this data in particular is actually motion picture, television project data, right? So it's a backup or multiple of that one. So what we've been trying to work towards is kind of having a better insight about how much data is consumed in a year across just our clients in general. So with 120 productions, we're averaging, somewhere around 50 to 200 terabytes per project. We have one project that's currently somewhere in the realm of about 600 terabytes, and they're only 3/4 of the way through their production. So some of this is about understanding how to better calculate not only those costs, but also to give the multiple folks that are involved in production, which is accounting, production, you have the actual crew themselves, the digital image technicians, who are ultimately making these decisions about data and how much data we're going to consume, right? Because it's based off of the director, right? You could say, how much data does Spielberg consume? He shoots on film, but anyways, sometimes that might be very small, right? But at the same time in production, if they see 3 cameras or 4 cameras and they want to understand how much data footprint that they're going to have for a given project, they want to understand how much am I going to consume? So that's what Cintegral has really worked directly with productions to understand, is how we can get to that point. So start with how much we're going to consume, how much is it going to cost to rent that, right? Because we're trying to be more of a kind of a circular economy in a lot of ways, where we're reusing these very high performance systems. One of the companies we work with, Seagate Live, has a product that we use that we incorporate it to move data around that's essentially subscription as a service. So as a way for us to allow our customers to have not only all of the encryption, all of the performance, everything possible, use that in a production scenario, fast-paced, robust hardware that you can use, we then able to take that and move it into onset and then back around when it turns into LTO or something, and then they can wipe that away, and that's kind of a little bit more of a more greener. LTOs can be, a lot less spinning disks sitting up, and that allows everyone to kind of get what they're looking for. So that's what Cintegral does, is kind of that moving that along, and we work in developing that technology with partners like the Entertainment Technology Center to develop those programs so that crew members, union crew members, can actually use and learn and understand all these great things that we're developing, and others like Sean and Bradley especially are developing for us to use, and giving them a resource from which to ask more information about the work that they're doing that's related to motion picture. So thank you.
Good segue into Bradley. And Bradley, Coresite's changed a little bit. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the background of Coresite within the entertainment business, and also the new acquisition a little bit. Oh, we can't hear Brad. Hang on one second, we can't hear you.
Yeah,
Is he muted?
No, it's on our side. Oh, it's on his side? I see it on the bottom left.
Sorry, Bradley. There you are.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Cool. Good check.
Perfect, yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect, thanks for the thumbs up. So yeah, thank you, Sean, for the introduction, and wish I could be there with all of you in person. But Sean, to answer some of your questions, Coresite traditionally was a third-party data center provider, effectively a third-party colo, where companies could rent space and power in a network-dense, cloud-enabled data center. How that's evolved, and really in its infancy now, is Coresite was acquired in Q4 of 2021 by American Tower, one of the largest cell tower owner-operators globally. And with the idea being, how are we going to extend the edge? And obviously, we've all heard about the edge and talked about it ad nauseum these last kind of 18 months, but what does that going to look like, and what are the use cases? And so American Tower is really trying to expand their edge from just being cell towers with primarily broadcast and mobile network operators to say, okay, we know the media industry, we know healthcare, we know IoT are going to need lower latency connectivity to transfer large amounts of data, but as quickly as possible. And we've seen this happen with the media entertainment industry, particularly here in LA, with their connectivity to cloud providers and how they optimize that connectivity to both reduce latency, reduce cost, and increase security and bandwidth. And so the partnership between Coresite and American Tower is with the idea that you have your the projects that Dane and Sean are working on, but where that data goes, where it sits, and how it's then utilized, not just by a post-production company, but there's going to be 20, 30, 50 different hands involved in every piece of content, and how that content gets distributed, and making sure it's not anchored to one location, but it's somewhat more elastic, and it allows it to be moved around both between production companies and studios and broadcasters and cloud providers and CDNs, and we've really built the native homes for all of that to happen in major edge metros. And the acquisition by American Tower just allows us to extend that edge. So instead of it being one Wilshire in LA, it's the hundreds of cell towers that are distributed across Southern California, and then having all of them tied back into a central compute hub via a Coresite data center in LA or any other market where you'd be producing content.
So the move is infrastructure based. It's American Tower is a perfect combination with a group like yours, because we're planning for possibly the 5G rollout. I know that's not necessarily here yet. It's something that we're planning, but this planning period is really important to data distribution throughout the United States. This isn't stuff that we just stand up, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. There's a lot of planning into doing these large data acquisitions and movement. It doesn't matter about how much money you have. From supply chain issues to coordinating vendors, there's many things involved, and I applaud the time that you guys are taking in making that right. It is going to be a solution, one of the solutions, these 5G rollouts, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons American Tower was interested in working with people like yourselves. I know that's not necessarily, you're not publicly talking about that, but we all know everyone's getting prepared for 5G deployments and such. And that's some of the road bumps, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that, Dane, is what are you experiencing out there currently? I mean, we still have 70 to 90% of the people hand-carrying drives. What do you see kind of some of the road bumps that are currently taking place, and what do you foresee with some of the things that I've shared with you in regards to edge data centers and physical data centers? Are those things that can be really helpful in the future to some of your process?
I think the difference here, I mean, just strictly speaking, you know, in motion picture and television, which is majority of who our clients are, is the most difficult thing for us is that, you know, where they're at location, right? So if you're at a Warner Brothers stage, it's pretty difficult for a crew member, for example, like a digital imaging technicians, with sole purpose there is to shepherd the footage that has been captured from camera and sound and anyone else and shepherd that to the next point, which is traditionally the laboratory or post-production or data center, depending on what projects you had. Some of the pain points that we have is, one, training, you know, training folks to be able to use some of these tools, use and understand what they're doing. Two is, it's pretty difficult for a member of the camera department to order or speak with a producer or a production or even a studio to say, hey, you know what? I need some edge connectivity. You guys have a really fast turnaround for this, and it would be really nice if I had, you know, a 10 gig connect or 40 gig or something faster to be able to hire someone to be able to sit wherever in some of these edge systems, containers, data centers, and actually commit to responding to everyone that needs to understand where that data is going, verify it, and make sure that you inform the camera department, for example, that, hey, you can reuse that data, you can reuse those cards. Another thing that we've also encountered really is sorting. Is the amount of data that has to be sorted. If you're going into a data infrastructure or a cloud type system, for example, that data is going to be unique to the people who are looking at it. And so it's starting some of those processes on set, for example, to understand how that data is going to be sorted and moved to editorial, right? Because typically there's a laboratory in between who's mitigating a lot of that. But to lower costs in general, some of that is being pushed onto set or near set to be able to accomplish all of the data that and the deliverables that the director, the executive producer, the studio need to see of all of their production. And this is hundreds of thousands, you know, of productions in the world. So it's a way to get them that data so that they can start doing it and sorting it in a way. So sorting is probably another big thing for us. So we're hoping, not in addition to having the connectivity and the storage, awesome, love that, but really having the front end metadata, the front end data sorting, management, DAM, MAM, SAM, and Fran, and have that ability to make that data meaningful for the folks that are going to be ingesting this, who are going to be completely remote. So in half the cases. So that's what really we've worked towards, but we're still local, right? We're always going to need to have a local backup, a local storage. You can throw 3 workstations at it, but at the end of the day, you also want to have that local turn into a data center connect at some level and be able to connect to that infrastructure on set. Because typically, like we use Thunderbolt, for example, on set, whereas we don't usually use, you know, Ethernet connectivity on set, and traditionally except in a very small way, or it's for lighting, or it's for other purposes. So having that on set is really a huge portion of what we want.
You think that's changing? I mean, would you
Absolutely.
welcome, when we talk about connected studios now, we're building so many studios, traditional and even virtual production, but do you feel that most of these studios need to take a look at true data center builds and true connectivity to support some of the things that you're dealing with?
Absolutely, and you have in production, you have folks that you need to interact with, right? And if traditionally they would interact with someone at a laboratory engineer and say, hey, I'm trying to achieve this. How does this work within your infrastructure? But now we're having conversations directly with the vendors who do this all day. And you have someone who's, we'll just call a layman, who is coming in and saying, hey, I understand how cameras work and how much data I need and where I need to store it to make it safe for me so that I can reuse my media, but also have that connectivity and say, hey, it's good, and verification. Recently, just to speak about this for a second, we had an issue where we needed to verify our data, right? We're using high-resolution cameras, and we needed to be able to do a camera-to-cloud workflow. In that camera-to-cloud workflow, we also had to verify that our media, that our original camera media was actually uploaded and verified before we could turn those cards around and reduce those costs for production to be able to move that data to the next point and reuse that media. So those are some of the pain points we encounter, on set with clouds and edge and connectivities. We love having the connectivity, but we need verification. We need, better sorting tools and developing, those into, what the future of edge might look like for someone on set who, works with cameras, not with data.
And AI as
And
well.
AI, yeah. That's
We're
great.
going to have more and more and more stuff. Bradley, I'll throw it back to you. Kind of give a little bit of an idea of what it takes to, you've heard some of these pain points. These aren't things that we just light up overnight. They do take a little bit of technical planning and some infrastructure. But can you also explain some of the ways that we could possibly help some of these studios? Colos are a perfect example if on-prem doesn't exist. Share some of the solutions potentially around edge and more, I think the colo is actually the better solution because the latency and the high process compute needs to be closer to set.
Yeah, I think, Sean, there's probably a couple of limitations that traditional studios or smart stage campuses run into. Dane hit on one, which is obviously connectivity, and having connectivity is great, but the connectivity into a studio is just frankly going to be far less capable than your connectivity into one worker. And really why that matters is who is digesting that data, who needs to access it, and then how that data is getting moved to cloud providers or other vendors. So for us, I think the first limitation that you run into with on-prem, particularly studio on-prem environments, is no matter how well established your relationship is with your network provider, they just don't have the capabilities to support high throughput connectivity in most cases on-prem. And so what that leads to is lead time in terms of how long it takes companies to spin up robust connectivity solutions to migrate large files that Dane and his team are managing. And so how you handle that is you leverage third-party colos that are not just a traditional data center, but that they are the network hub where networks are terminating their footprints. And it allows you to leverage a robust ecosystem of ISPs and network providers, but also direct on-ramps to your cloud provider. So instead of trying to push your data from a enterprise class ISP service from an on-prem data center at a studio, you're doing so in the same facility as the cloud on-ramp that exists. And so you're able to shorten your lead times that you would have from 30 to 90 days with a traditional network provider spinning up additional services, or trying to build out larger capacity in an on-prem data center to handle larger workloads. These are things that are taking 30 to 90 days on the network side and a year plus on the hardware side. In a data center, all of that exists, right? It's sitting there, it's being ready, it's waiting to be leveraged. It's capacity that needs to be consumed. And that's where a third-party provider like Coresite in that co-location space that's both network neutral and also cloud-enabled, that it opens up doors to shrinking your lead time from, be it on the short end 30 days to the long end 12 months, to 3 days to spin up 100 gig connectivity to AWS, or 24 hours to spin up 100 gig connectivity to Azure via ExpressRoute, all of which is done in a Coresite type facility where those on-ramps physically sit. And so when you think of the limitations that every time Dane goes to a shoot, he's constantly managing what his network connectivity and what his compute capacity is on-prem on that shoot. Well, we know that the environment on-prem isn't supporting heavy GPU rendering rigs that are drawing, 35,000 watts. That's not something that these facilities are designed to support. Well, a third-party colo is designed to support that. So it gives you additional flexibility on the second piece, which is that the data gravity. Where does it sit and how is it getting moved around? And is it being pulled down to a specific location, or is it more elastic at a Coresite facility where it enables you to move that data to your partners, your customers, your vendors, and it opens up the door to bandwidth and throughput that just frankly don't exist in on-prem environments today.
Well, it also turns into an OpEx versus CapEx plan. Let's talk about that, data gravity. You've been dealing exponentially on that recently. I know you've shared a lot of that with me. How is that how's that affecting you today, and how do you believe that's going to affect you into the future, especially with some of the tools that we've been talking about, AI and such?
I mean, a couple things that we've really encountered. The big thing really for us is trying to be able to anticipate that gravity situation, right? So one of our clients, for example, is a volumetric capture company. They generate something approximately 30 terabytes a day of data of centurions, 100-year-olds, right? Talking about how their experiences were in World War or in that time of their life, and get that information and give clients the ability to use AI to understand how they connect with some of those folks like centurions, for example, who have all this great information to share, and then understanding how much data that they're going to generate with this volumetric rig that's in front of them capturing all of this. So what happens is you end up, over the course of a year, generating 30 terabytes a day, on and on and on, and then you get to a point where a production company was never intending to house, something around 3+ petabytes of their own data, and don't have any kind of data officer in place. It's basically a senior engineer who now has to understand it. But those kinds of issues is something that we encounter with some of our volumetric. So we try to bring that service to folks to help them avoid that situation of moving their data 3 petabytes from their on-prem system, which is, by the way, housed across probably 25 machines or 25 buckets or storage, and then bring that into them in a meaningful way where they can get all of that data off in a really low training, easy way, and through a portal, or in Bradley's case, a colo, where they can work with a third party or a vendor to upload or ingest all of that data that they have, and then just dump it into a bucket and then verify it on the other side. So that's one of the things that we're seeing a lot. But in motion picture, we generate unprecedented amount of data per day, per week, per month. And anyone here who probably has 6 or 7 streaming services that they are subscribing to, they'll realize that's a ton of data. 25,000 or so projects a year, and that's just approximately in the United States, if not more. There's a lot more that are smaller. So hopefully that gives folks, they start to encounter and start to understand that that's a meaningful question to ask. And so that's why I turn to folks like Sean and say, hey, I'm trying to understand what this is going to be for my clients. How can I avoid this situation? How can I avoid getting them where they generate 3 petabytes 3 years later and go, man, we just thought we were just recording. So, I mean, this is a very normal situation for folks that are just there to record or document these incredible people's lives and understanding and translate that to the future. And so we hope to avoid, some of those for some of our clients. So that's where we feel like a lot of edge and more so having the data centers be able to pop up where, hey, we need to be able to have this on-prem for our system in Hollywood, for example, and load all that data in instead of sending me 25 snowballs, which take 30 days each.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that we want to avoid if we can.
Well, that's the thing. We were talking about the future and what to be looking for. And it's very important we look far down the road and plan, not plan when it happens. This town grew up with green lighting something and tearing it down. We're beyond that at this point. Planning is a year process minimum. And we have to start looking at a lot of these problems that are taking place currently and know that they're going to grow 3 times, 4 times larger. So to integrate and work with groups like Coresite and other colos and other transport companies, it's really important to get your head around the tools that are offered, some of the technologies that are offered, because this isn't something that you're just going to stand up when needed. It's too late at that point. Again, it is a year process minimum for planning from the idea to the execution. Would you believe? I mean, have you come across that?
Impossible.
Well, I love doing the impossible, as Disney used to say.
Most productions happen approximately within 32 weeks total,
Right.
100%. So to get that much infrastructure up in that amount of time is really hard, really difficult. Most people only make decisions within 72 hours when they're up against a wall.
Correct. So I want everybody to start kind of thinking a little bit farther down the road, start building infrastructure. Most of the things that we're doing, very trend. They're excellent for the work that we're doing today, but this is multiplying like crazy. And it's very, very important that we get a hold of a couple of people like Dane and Bradley to kind of discuss this roadmap about how we're going to deal with this unbelievable amounts of data. So, any questions? We're pretty much wrapping up here. Sorry, our clock's not working, so I keep looking down.
Yeah, the definitions. You're throwing out things I've never heard of. On-prom and one Wilshire is the facility that does this.
It's a colo.
Yeah, Bradley, you want to say what sorry, he was just asking the definitions of on-prem and one Wilshire. Give a little background on what one Wilshire is and your presence at that location.
Yeah, sure. So one Wilshire is probably one of the 5 most connected buildings in the world. When I say that, I mean it has 300 plus network ISPs, fiber providers. That's from local, last mile to tier 1 long haul providers to providers that are leveraging subsea cables for connectivity to APAC. So one Wilshire really is the network hub of the West Coast. And so it is really the holy grail of third-party data centers from a connectivity standpoint here on the West Coast of North America. In regards to the definitions, I think, Sean, you and I have joked about this before, that everyone has different definitions for the same word in parts of this industry. We just consider on-prem any form of infrastructure that a client is trying to manage somewhere on their own property, be it in a studio, in an office, in an IT closet underneath their desk. And we consider a colo or a co-location facility effectively a third-party owned and operated data center where clients are able to rent on a yearly or monthly basis, depending on the company, both space, power, cooling, and then connectivity in that third-party provider. So it's really a transfer from CapEx, invest tens of millions of dollars in building out UPSs and generators and transfer switches and paying tens of thousands of dollars to your ISP to bring connectivity into your office. That's your traditional legacy CapEx model. Your OpEx model is going to be leverage a third party where all of that infrastructure is already built, and you are effectively paying a monthly fee for the right to leverage that platform or that ecosystem.
And sometimes it's a hybrid of all three. Public cloud, a colo center, and an on-prem. Because sometimes high process compute, special effects, especially real-time special effects, require local storage, local processing and such, where you leverage companies like the one Wilshire Coresite as the on-ramp, off-ramp to the rest of the world that get out to the multiple data centers that where you're stored. So the Azure's basically the multi-cloud. So it can be a hybrid, it could be a single solution. It all depends on the application. But all of this is about long-term planning. It's not something that you stand up right away. And mainly what I want to point out with someone like Dane is he's living and breathing this every day, and it is getting worse and worse. And he's calling me saying, now I'm going to start to throw AI at this thing, and it's just going to explode. And where is that AI? Is it in the cloud? Is it in a colo? Or is it on set? And it all depends on the application. But it's very, very important that we start talking about the whole process globally, the last foot, the last mile, and so on. And so I thank you. I really wanted you to share because you have some real world experiences of this growth and this data gravity. And Bradley, you have obviously one of the most connected facilities in the world. So I appreciate the time for my two guests. And
Thank you.
any other questions we could answer afterwards because we'll run out of time. And we have another panel that will talk a little bit about some of the things that we're dealing with within production as far as the road bumps and case studies next. Thanks.